welcome to the Thresholds of Reality, the podcast where we explore unexplained and mysterious events, phenomena, and legends. Today we are joined by Elsie Lodge, landlord of Bethany's Home Sweet Haunted Home, which you can find on Facebook, Instagram, Airbnb, and all of the social media networks that you may want to peruse. Strap in as we examine the edges of the unknown. All right, Elsie, welcome to the show. We're going to put you up top here and make you big. All right, so when you were going to get your real estate license, did anybody, I don't know if you have a real estate license, but did anybody say to you, you know what, instead of being a landlord, you could be a haunted landlord?
Unfortunately, no, there was no warning signs. Actually in the state of California, there is a law that you are supposed to tell people if the houses are haunted when you're selling them. It is called a stigmatized property. So when I was searching it last year, basically what I do is I buy houses that are large and I rent them out by the room. So a lot of those really big houses are really old houses because nowadays they just don't make houses with 8 bedrooms, 7 bedrooms, right? It's not necessary thanks to birth control. And so yeah, so I buy a lot of older houses, and there was no mention of the fact that this house was haunted. I was told that it used to be a brothel, but that's all the history that I was given at the time when I purchased the house.
Oh, okay. So they didn't give you a whole lot of information. I mean, how does that even come up? Was it something that you had to experience for yourself, or your guests had to experience for yourself?
Yeah. So again, I bought the house to be a long-term rental, and I am somebody who has abilities and always has, but hasn't really used them or don't really know how to use them or whatever. So the spirits, when I saw the house though, I was like, I had to have the house. Like I absolutely knew that I had to buy this house. And it was on the market for like 8 months. Should have been a red flag. My home inspector though, also another red flag for you here. He showed up at the house and he's like, I don't want to inspect this house. And I was like, I need you to inspect the house. And he's like, I don't want to. He's like, there's just so many windows and stuff. And I was like, look, you just inspected a house for me that was 700 square feet bigger than this house with more bedrooms and bathrooms. Like, what are you talking about? And so finally I was like, I don't care. Like, I'm pretty much going to buy this house no matter what. So do what you got to do, but I need you to go inspect that house. So when I met him after he did his inspection, the first thing he said to me is, what if the house is haunted? And I said, I don't care. Like that has nothing to do with my money. Like that has nothing to do with what I'm doing here. Like it does not matter. But it wasn't until my final walkthrough. So now it's too late to back out. My final walkthrough, me and my real estate agent and my handyman were walking through the house. We have to go through every single room, document everything in the room. And I look at them and I said, there's a girl in the closet. And they just kind of looked at me like I was crazy. So that was the first time. But again, it was too late to back out. So what do? There's a girl in the closet. Okay. Whatever.
So what was she doing? Was she just standing there? Was she older, younger?
I don't see them. I only feel them. And I knew she's, so for me, she comes in as like 12, 13, but she was older than that. But I get a mental emotional ages. So like if it's somebody, for example, I went to Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum a couple years ago, and there is a spirit that's there who lived there, and he was mentally handicapped. So when he came through to me, he came through as a child, but he's not a child. He just happens to be probably a severely autistic or low functioning autistic man. But for me, he came through as a child. So they come through differently. I have a block. I refuse to see them, so I don't see them no matter what. Like everyone around me will be seeing it. I don't see anything, but I can feel them. And she didn't have like a malicious. I was just like, there's a girl hiding in the closet. Like that's really weird. Like okay, whatever. Didn't think too much about it. One of my friends, she knew a paranormal investigator who happened to be coming to town. And so she arranged for this woman to come to my house. And she came in. I never spoke to the woman. Like literally, I was just sitting on the couch. And when you walk in the front door to the right is the bedroom where that is, she was. And then the left is the living room. She walked in, she went into that bedroom, came out and said, I don't like that room. I said, me either. She goes, there's a girl in the closet.
Well,
And
she
that
said the
kind of was
same
like
thing.
life-changing for me right there, because it's really hard. Exact same thing. And so to have somebody else confirm these things that I mean, I just know, but I can't explain why I know them or how I know them. But to have somebody else, say the same thing, it was kind of like um, mind-boggling. But I think it's definitely opened up a lot for me. And I mean, this house in general, it's very active, and so it's opened up a lot for me. Like now it's harder for me to go other places because now like I've got a light bulb on me, and so I'll just be going to like an estate sale or a garage sale, and I'll be like, oh, there's a dead person here like bugging me. Great. Like who, and so I never had that problem. Like very rarely had those sort of situations before, but now it's a pretty common thing. Like I went to a brewery last weekend, and I was like getting a pain in my chest, a pain in my back, couldn't breathe. So I know that this is like spirit related, and it was for a monster convention. And so I went out to one of the paranormal investigator groups, and I was like, are there ghosts here? And she's like, oh yeah, they used to build coffins here. They used to use the people with tuberculosis to build coffins here. And I was like, oh, okay.
Oh my God.
That's why I couldn't breathe. So it's like now it's all the time, but before it wasn't. It was a very rare thing. Ever since I was a child, like when I was a child, I used to see them. But as a teenager, upper teenage adult, I don't anymore. And so, yeah, I totally shut off that part of my body or my brain, my everything, until this house kind of like opened it all up. Unfortunately, and fortunately, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it.
Is that the only spirit in the house? Is that girl?
No, we have like 12 to 15 regulars. Plus, I've been told there's up to 3 portals in the house. So I
Describe to
kind of
me what
knew.
that means.
So
What
yeah,
is
so there's
the portal?
basically doorways, and there's different doorways. So in my basement, I have a doorway for the spirits, spiritual realms. Outside of my property, there would be a doorway for elementals, and elementals are like, think of they are attached to the land. They were here before humans. Um, so we hear about like pickwidgies or puckwidgies and all these different kinds of elementals for forests, but I'm on a creek, so I have water ones, and they're mischievous. So and then I have a mirror that I have a picture that was taken in the mirror, and you can see a whole family sitting on the bed that there was nobody
Wow.
sitting in that mirror. So I have a whole lot of situations going on, but the house itself is alive, basically. I mean, I don't know any other way to explain it, but the house is very much alive. It isn't like a human, but it isn't like a plant. It's like a goldfish or a really dumb dog. Like it's just somewhere in there where it's not quite like sentient, but it's very much alive. And
Okay.
it's really good at building attachments to people. So I know I have an unhealthy attachment to the house. Like I miss it. I don't miss my husband when he's gone, but I miss this house if I can't go there for like a couple of weeks, right? Like
Okay.
I miss it. Um, and I found out that my housekeeper drives by every single day to check on it. And I had some tenants who moved in downstairs. They were only supposed to be like 2 months between buying and selling a house. They don't want to leave. So the house really like captures people and holds them in. And I think that's why the house has so many spirits in it. Because I have a whole family. I have a father who's in the basement. his name's Steve, and Steve is a shady character. And so I thought he was there originally just because he was afraid to move on because he would probably be judged poorly. But his daughter's there, his son-in-law's there, his wife is there, and I'm like, they weren't going to jail like he was. So I don't think that that's the reason, but I just, yeah, I think it's the house has an attachment, and so people don't want to leave, so they don't.
So the little girl is the intro to the house, and then slowly everybody else, like, she gives the approval, and then everybody else does.
No, it's Steve. Steve in the basement. Yeah, so Steve, the portal's in the basement, and Steve hangs out down there. And I used to wonder why he did that. I was like, is he hiding gold down here? Because he was, he went to prison, federal prison twice for, it's called high grading, which is basically conspiracy to sell stolen gold to the government. And like the last time he was arrested was in 1939 for this, where him and 6 other men were trying to sell $300,000 of gold to the LA Mint. So I don't know, like $300,000 in 1939. It's a crazy amount of money. So it was like, is it that? And then the cement in there is weird, where it's like built up. I'm like, is there bodies in the basement? Like, why is he hanging out in the basement? But I think I realize now that he's bouncing. He's controlling who gets to come in and out of that portal. So, which is nice because he's done a pretty good job of, like not allowing too much like scary stuff in. We have jokesters. We have one who likes to grab women's butts. He especially, has a type. He really likes chubby brunette women. That's his thing. But we have some, things get moved a lot, like hidden or messed with. So those tenants who don't want to leave, apparently the spirits really have been messing with them, but they started moving their magnets on the fridge to cover their grandchildren's faces.
Oh, wow.
Just weird stuff like that. So it's nothing like scary and malicious, but it's more annoying than anything. My housekeeper, so in California this week, it's been a record-breaking heat. Like literally Tuesday was the hottest day in record in Sacramento. And so I blocked off the calendar all week for her so she could stay there because she doesn't have AC. A lot of the places in these historic towns don't have air conditioning. And this house does. And so, yeah, so she was like laying on the couch. She heard a noise downstairs or in the back part of the house. And eventually when she went down to the kitchen, she's like, the recycle bin's lid was off. It's just, these are the things that happen just like literally every day. So.
Okay, so you've been able to identify at least Steve, but have you been able to identify a lot of the other entities in the house and put names to faces?
Yeah, Steve told us his name, which is actually the only reason why I know who he is, because I got the record of everybody who ever owned the house. Although that doesn't tell us a whole lot because it was a boarding house, a female boarding house, aka brothel, and then a regular boarding house. So I don't have lists of all the boarders, but I had the owners, and I couldn't find any records for him anywhere because his legal name's Stefano. And so when I searched Stefano, I got an obituary, but that was it. But a woman who works for the county who helped me get a lot of the records. She also is a paranormal investigator at a local reform school. And so she came in and she just said, hi, like, my name is, like, what's your name? And he said, Steve. And I was like, Steve. And then I was like, Stefano. So when I started searching Steve, that's when his whole sordid bootlegging, owning a saloon, the house was a saloon, all this stuff started coming out once he told us what his actual name, what the name is he went by. And then, so yeah, then basically now that I know who he is, I know his entire family history. He actually does have a daughter who's still alive. She's like 86. But she likes to lie to me and her family doesn't seem to like her very much. But so then we were able to really like ask, like, is this person? Is this person? Because we know the names, and they'd say yes or no. Like, they actually communicate quite a bit with us, like even just whether that be like necrophonic acts, spirit boxes, that sort of thing. But they're really good at lighting up K2s or REM pods or whatever. Like, they are very, they're very good at communicating when they want, what they want. So
do you have a lot of investigators that come to stay there for that reason? Then I take it.
Yeah. And the thing is, and now I know this is true because I've never really been into paranormal stuff. Like I said, I have I'm a highly intuitive empath, so I have abilities, and I always have, but it's just it is what it is. But I work in research. I work in, and so like I've never really like kind of gone into I mean I believe that my beliefs on everything is I don't know enough about the world to say whether or not there is such thing as aliens, Sasquatches, or anything else, so I should just assume those things exist because somebody else who knows more about that, if they think that that exists, then I believe that because I don't know anything. And so I've never been on a paranormal investigation. I've never done any of that stuff until after this house came. And so, yeah, I was having paranormal investigators saying, oh my God, this house is the most active place we've ever been. It's more active than Waverly. And so this summer I actually took my nieces on a haunted tour of West Virginia and Kentucky. And we went to Waverly and we had like two things happen. And I'm like, what a disappointment. This is like 8 o'clock at night, my house. Like we were there for 6 hours and two things happened and I can't even sit on the couch without you like, you guys, I'm trying to watch this. Please stop slamming doors. Like leave me alone right now. I'm not in the mood for you to play with the lights. Like, and so I didn't realize that. I mean, I do know that stuff happens every single day, but I didn't realize like how unusual that is, I guess.
So was there like a honeymoon period where the ghosts in the house and the house itself were just basically getting used to you, and what was that like? Was it more active or less active during that time?
Um, well, obviously they always say, when you do construction and stuff, you kick up activity. And so I kind of came in immediately and started doing things. And so they kind of have always shown their displeasure with my decorating choices and everything else. And so, but I
How did they show that?
Oh, so for example, I just hung this wall of mirrors, and the wall of mirrors is right across from a motion activated lights. Because the house is creepy at night, I put in motion activated lights in the hallways. So I wouldn't have to be walking around because it's an old house. So like the light switch is at one end or the other end, but you come in the middle, you've got to go one way or the other in the dark, knowing that there's ghosts everywhere around you. And I'm not here for it. So I put in motion activated lights. So we're setting up this whole wall of mirrors. I've got motion activated lights. So the light should have been on the whole time. It never turned on once the entire time we were hanging up those mirrors. Wasn't until after we were done. And then later I walked through, it turned on. I was like, are you kidding me, guys? Like, because, we could really use that light while we were hanging these things. But no, they like refused to turn on. And like I remodeled the bathroom, but only a little bit. I changed the vanity and the floors in the bathroom. And then for like a month and a half afterwards, I was getting like literally every single night in my camera in my apartment, I was getting orbs. I was getting things moving. I was getting like, like all sorts of stuff popping up where before I wasn't getting that literally every day, but every day that stuff was popping up. And voices and, so some other stuff that has come up on those cameras. So yeah, so they do show their displeasure with my decoration choices, but I think that they also know that I'm taking care of the house, and so they respect me and I respect them greatly. Like I treat them like they're live people. I say hello when I come in. I like, how are you, Steve? What's going on? Hi, Fred. Hi, Linda. Like, so I talk to them. I tell them, hey, this is what's going on this week. And so I respect them. And so, yeah, I think that they really respect me too. And I think that's come through when other people have done paranormal investigations, because somebody says my name, they'll like light up their equipment when they say my name. They're like, oh, like one day I had a group come in and they knocked artwork off the spirits. The people were in the living room making too much noise. I have a spirit who does not like noise. And she knocked the artwork off the wall in the back part of the house, the solarium, which is like super active, and broke it. And so they put all this equipment out there, back there. They were back in the living room, and then it started going off. And when they walked down the hall and they started talking to them, and they're like, "Oh, we told Elsie you broke this," and their lights like just lit up. Like, oh yeah, you're in trouble. Like, we told Elsie. So I mean, I've learned my lesson. I don't put anything with glass back there.
Have you ever thought about including them in your decorating ideas? Which title do you like, this one or this one?
Yeah, I don't know how they would communicate that with me, but no, I don't. I mean, like
Like have them put two up, they could knock one down or something.
Well, you do like Stranger Things. You put the K2 meter, put a K2 meter or REM pod under each one, have them light up the one that they like.
I'm glad that they are happy with my deck, whether, I hope they're happy with my decorating choices, but ultimately I don't really care. Like, I don't care what flooring they wanted. I chose that flooring and I liked it. So I've only been rude to them once. And that was because I was, so there's a solarium, and of course it does what it does during the summer. It gets ridiculously hot. And again, I just put air conditioning in the house in March. So for the last 150 years, there's been no AC, right? And so last summer, it was just so hot. So I trying to stop it. I hung curtains, the light blocking curtains all throughout the solarium. And so while me and my friend were doing it, it was like 9 o'clock at night. We were the only two there, and it's a big house. There's 4 external doors in this house because they old houses also like to have lots of extra doors. And we're hanging it, and we hear banging in one of the bedrooms. And so we go and creep through the room because you have to get all the way across the room to turn on the light. Of course, there's nothing there. And then we go back to it, and then we hear banging again, and it's in the bathroom. But the bathroom's in the solarium. We can see in it. We know nobody's there. So then we go downstairs, and I make too much noise again because I get excited about something, and they stomp on the ground because this is one who hates noise. And at that point in time, I kind of lost it. I was just like, that's the one time I was super rude. I was like, you are a jerk when you're alive. You're a jerk now. You will not tell me what to do in my house. I just lost it on him. But I'm not really good about being told what to do. But dead dude, you're definitely not going to tell me what to do. So yeah, I'm not including them in my choices. This is my house. You can stay. And I'd like us to be friends. But no, I am decorating this house the way I want.
So you mentioned Linda. Is that the one that likes it quiet?
No, that's his daughter. And I actually think that she is really good about trying to protect people, especially from her husband, because her husband, I think, is the bug grabber. Because, so we'll have it where people are doing the Estes method. And for those who don't know, so you're listening to, there's a person who has noise canceling headphones. They're listening to white noise. And so they can't hear people asking questions. They just hear what's coming through the headphones. And so they'll say random words. And it feels, to the person doing it, it feels really random because you don't hear what's going on. But when doing that, we've actually picked up where, and she thinks that it has something to do with it, we're asking questions and it doesn't make sense, but it's actually she's yelling at herself, where they're yelling back, stop touching her. It's only natural, stop it, you're a jerk, knock it off. And so it didn't make sense to the woman doing it, but it made sense to all of us listening to it that there's two people arguing with one another. And so, yeah, I feel like Linda really likes to step in and rein them in a little bit.
Go all the way to the afterlife and still have to argue with someone.
Yeah, you can still get nagged by your wife in the afterlife, so don't think you're getting away from them. Act right, or you're going to get it from us. Especially if you're
one time when we were alive.
I mean, I guess he's lucky he doesn't get, perhaps can't get hit, because if he's grabbing other women's butts in front of her, he's lucky all he's doing is getting yelled at.
What are you going to do about this, Linda?
Yeah, right.
So you describe the house as like a dumb dog or a goldfish. How does the house have moods?
I don't know that it has moods, but it definitely draws you in. So during the day, or when it's sunny, I should say, because it's not during the day. If it's raining, it doesn't do this. During the day, the energy in the house feels like Disneyland. It is so happy and exciting. It's hard to explain, but it's Disneyland. And then when it gets dark, it's dreary. It's depressing, which is very unusual. I kind of always wondered if that had to do with Linda and Fred, because I understand they were alcoholics in life. And so it kind of feels like my mother, who was during the day, really in a good mood, super happy drunk. And then at some point in time, there was a crash. That's what the house does. And it's usually right around sundown or right before sundown. So this time of year, starts about 6:30, where the energy just totally shifts in the house. So I always try to get with paranormal investigators, like get there early. Don't walk in when it's dark. Get there at 4 because you need to feel the difference between this house during the day and this house at night. It's very different.
That's really neat.
So how many are family members that are in the house? They're all, you said there's 12 to 15. So how many are actually family members?
That family, there's 4 of them that I know of. So yeah, Steve, his wife, his daughter, and his son-in-law. And then I believe we have Maggie was the second owner who would have likely run it as the brothel. She got married like 7 years later. So her husband and her son. So that's 3 more. And then there's just a random woman in one closet, another random woman in another closet. And then we have a lot of residual activity that I don't know who it is, but it's just residual activity. So it's kind of like, yeah, we have all sorts of different things. And again, I don't know who I don't know who Bethany is because she never, like, technically, she might have been one of the prostitutes, one of the sex workers, but I don't know because we don't have lists of those. All I have lists is the owners. So that makes it a little bit more difficult. I mean, I do know like some of the murders that happened at the house, but the only reason I know those murders happened was because it said Steve's name in the newspaper articles. Without
So he
that,
murdered people there?
he didn't. Well, I mean, no, he didn't that I know of. But it was a boarding house, and so there were some love triangles. It was a gambling hall, and a speakeasy saloon, so people get drunk. Miners, I mean, miners are kind of rough. It's a mining town, so yeah, you get a bunch of miners who are single men who are down in a mine working really hard days, come out and do nothing but drink, and gamble and visit the brothels. They're a rough crowd. So yeah, we've had a couple of murders. We had a couple of deaths at the mine. Like one of them, he fell and he broke his neck, and they took him back to the house instead of taking him directly to the hospital. I don't know why they would do that, except for the doctor actually did live across the street. But yeah,
take him to the brothel.
So it's like, it doesn't make sense. Why would you take him to the boarding house and not to the hospital? I don't know. But yeah, so there's been definitely, I have got documented murders and stuff like that have happened, over the years. Steve's daughter said she's 86. She said that she knows that like a boarder died in the 50s, but I have no idea who that is. So there might be a lot of more deaths that I just don't know about because it's not an owner that died there. It is, so
some random traveler, yeah,
random person, or again, it doesn't need to be anybody who's ever even lived there, because if I have this doorway in the basement, then it could be anywhere. And this is a highly haunted area. So Jackson, California is a gold mining town. Last weekend, the spirits were insane. I actually had to tell them to go to sleep. I was done. Like I had things to do tomorrow. You need to go to sleep at 5 o'clock in the morning because it was nonstop. But last weekend was the 100-year anniversary of one of the tragedies at the mine where 47 miners died. And so they started sending out SOSs at like 10:45 at the house. And so again, I don't know if any of those miners died who lived in that house or not, but at 10:45 we started getting SOSs. So it was insane. But yeah, there's a lot of tragedy. I had 2 people I know of who lived in the house who died in mining accidents. Both of them fell down the mine basically and fell 1,600 feet plus. So
okay, so is there a debrief or maybe a warning given to guests when they show up? Maybe not the paranormal ones, but the ones that are just there to stay.
I do call it Bethany's Home Sweet Haunted Home. So I put it out there. So there is a warning label. But again, actually the great things about these spirits, and I really appreciate this about them, like I said, we have a really good relationship, and this is one of those ways. If people do not want to talk to them, they leave them alone. Like they know Elsie will come next week. She'll talk to us. We can just hold it in. Now, sometimes they finish that off with a grand gesture for me. Like I stayed there one weekend with had a girls' weekend. It's wine country, so they wanted to go wine tasting. But one of them was deathly afraid of ghosts. So there was no, even for me, there was no talking to the spirits that weekend. And then they left and they hid my placemats, and it took me 2 days to find them. So 2 days. I was so annoyed. This is the kind of stuff they do all the time. I said they think they're funny. I don't think they're funny, but they really think they are funny. But it gets really annoying sometimes. But yeah, so like they will. So like when I have regular guests who will come, like I had a guy who was in town for work, and he's like, I have to tell you, I'm like really not excited about the ghost. I said, just walk in there and tell them to leave you alone. They will, and they did. So
I have a question. Are you at the house right now?
no, this is my house.
Your own house. Okay.
Yeah, this is my house with all of my extra decorations since I do furnished rentals. So I have a lot of extra decor everywhere because for the next house.
That makes sense. So have there ever been any kind of negative experiences at the haunted house?
So I mean, I've never there's been no like scratches, no pushes. We've had some people who have, let's say there's a paranormal group who's been there a couple times, and they're the type of people who tend to get jumped or like kind of taken over, possessed, and so everywhere they go. So this is
really?
this is a problem personally, not with my house, but it started happening. She thinks it started happening there, but no, we really haven't had, again, short of things moving, disappearing on you. We haven't had anybody get like physically hurt other than getting your butt grabbed or getting at a man. Only one man that I know of has been touched. He had a shaved, bald, shiny head, and apparently it would like twice. It like ran their finger from like the front to the back of his head, which is funny because my friend Dana, who is their favorite chubby brunette, she told me that like they poked her in the back and then kind of like did this like going up her spine. And so I kind of thought that was strange that it was like the same kind of motion. And then in May, I had another woman who looks extremely like Dana show up, and same thing. She was in the basement, and she said she felt like somebody just touched back on up. And so we've had like a lot of the same kinds of touches, but no scratches. No, like again, it's more annoying, like the or a whisper in your ear, but nothing malicious whatsoever, short of messing with the lights so people fall down the stairs. But that's why I put the motion activated lights in there. That's about the worst of it.
So we recently participated in our very first ghost investigation here in Arizona. And one of the things that they warned us about was that in the basement there was an elemental, like you described earlier. Mm-hmm. Do the elementals cause trouble for you and the ghosts, or you and the guests?
So yeah, basically the elementals are one of my thieves. So they're like, according to Steve, they're the ones who stole my mother's glasses and haven't returned them. So they do like to move things. The tenants in the apartment have some toys from their grandkids come over and like a music box. They like to play with that sort of stuff, but they're the ones who like to move things, I guess. I've had a weird footprint. It was tiny, like this little tiny wet footprint appeared on the stairs one day. And then I had a really weird handprint, but it was like only 4 fingers. It wasn't quite right, that appeared on the fridge. And again, it's a stainless steel fridge, so if you touch it, your handprints don't get on there. So I still don't even understand how there was a handprint on it, but I haven't gotten my hand wet to do it. So yeah, they seem to be tricksters, but we don't have too many problems. I know they can be kind of bad. Like there's a whole lot of ideas about them trying to like drown babies and stuff, but I don't have any babies. And if I did, I'd probably let them. But
no. Okay. Well, that's okay. Yeah, that's fascinating.
Sorry. That
You
was why I had so many problems with the fact that I had like kid ghosts. I'm like, I don't even like alive kids. I don't want kid ghosts in the house. So when I've heard that they might be elementals, I was like, oh, thank God. And somebody was like, and the guy, the psychic, he was like, what? You're the only person I've ever heard who's glad that there's elementals. I'm like, it's not kids. I'm good. Like, it's not kids.
Anything but kids.
I'm okay.
So you talked about well, Kyle has spirits that have been in his house for a long time, and he's often described some of them as just kind of being like a recording that just kind of loops.
Mhm.
I think you were describing something like that earlier. How do you know the difference between one that you can interact with and one that's just kind of like on a loop?
When we have like the orb activity that we had, for example, it's always the same direction. It's always, same activities kind of happening in the same areas all the time or at the same time. The stairway feels very crowded to a lot of people. And I think that's because the gambling was downstairs. So it was like a funnel to get people upstairs and downstairs. So some of that stuff is just this residual kind of stuff that happens. It's just leftover energy. And a house that's this old, that had this many people living in it, of course there's going to be a lot of energy in it, right? Because the law of conservation, again, work in science, says you cannot create or destroy energy. So you're leaving it everywhere you go. You're sprinkling that around like the Keebler elves, and so, of course, a house that's this old but had that many people is just going to have all this energy left in it. So that versus Steve, who literally told us his name, I'm not sure who it was. We had when the Haunted Historian came out, Connor, and he brought a friend with him as well. We were in the basement, and I was at that time. That's when I was still thinking there was bodies in the basement, and so we're asking like, how many bodies are in the basement? And he's like, 10. It's like, how many bodies are in the basement? 7. How many bodies are in the basement? 8. How many bodies? And like they kept throwing out numbers, just random numbers. And I have this on camera because I have cameras in my basement because it floods. And then Connor said, if you don't know, just say, I don't know. And then it says, I don't know. And so it's like, that's an intellectual, they communicate back and forth with us. So we have that, but then there's just some energy that's just there. And then, of course, you have to talk also about dimensions.
What do you mean by that?
I kind of feel like, there's this whole like blip in the matrix theories out there, right? Where there's like multiple dimensions. So the one woman in one of the bedrooms that I hate it so much. I didn't put a bed in it. I made it as uncomfortable as possible. There's some dolls in there. People are like, you should get rid of the dolls. It's creepy in there. I'm like, no, the room is creepy. That's why it's creepy. But she doesn't want anybody in that room. And all she ever says is like, get out and F you. And I kind of wonder sometimes if it's a dimensional issue where she thinks we're the ghosts. And so she's just telling us to go away because she thinks that, like, is there some time issues here? And also with the stuff moving, sometimes I also have to wonder, like, how is it you put it here and then you come back and it's over there? Is this just a time, like a dimensional thing? I mean, it's so hard to know because the paranormal is what it is, right? It's unexplained. There's no way for us to know, that all of us are living the same lives on 3 different, and at different times. But I do wonder about this really angry spirit who, you said, all she says is F you and get out. If like she thinks we're the spirits. She's living her life and we're the spirits there, so it's kind of like
I thought that more than once. Like, I wonder if that's what it is. Are we the spirits in this house? Like, because like last night, for example, I thought I saw someone walk down my hallway, and I was like, hey, bring me back a water. And my wife was like, who are you talking to? And I was like, our son just walked by. And she's like, there's nobody here. I'm like, oh, I just seen him walk by. And she's like, there's nobody. It's like, and I think that's our loop ghost. That's because that's all it does. Mm-hmm. It just walks up and down the hallway. But I swear every time I see it, I always go, bring me something back. Because I always think it's somebody walking by.
So rude. The ghost never gets you snacks. It's the worst.
No, bring me a bottle of water. Thanks for nothing.
I know. If I can't train my spirits eventually to get me snacks, I feel like I've failed. Obviously, you guys know how to move stuff. You move stuff all the time. How about you move the peanut butter races, treats over here? Yeah, that's the kind of moving you should work on.
I want to teach mine to wash the dishes.
Yeah, not take it off the trash can. That's not helpful. Mop. Yeah.
So if you have these ghosts and you're kind of managing them very well, do you feel like you're herding cats? Is it easier to manage them now? Or were there any times when it was like more difficult?
I think the thing is that's why I've worked really hard. I've had a bunch of groups come in. Like, I'm really trying to learn who they are, because the more I know about them, the less creepy they are. When I have pictures of these people, them as humans, it's like Steve. It's kind of like he died at 91. It's kind of hard to be afraid of a 91-year-old man, right? Like, I could take him. So I've really tried to and again, I work in research, and literally my binder is so thick of all the newspaper articles. I could show you, it's in the other room. But so I've really, worked hard at that. And I think that has made it a lot less creepy for me and for everyone else too. But again, I'm just having to roll with the punches, because I bought this house to be a long-term rental. And I never intended to own an Airbnb. I kind of actually don't even believe in Airbnbs, because I think they take away housing from people who need legitimate housing, but nobody wants to live in this house. So I can't feel too bad about it. And so, I had to totally flip. I had to furnish it totally different than what I would a normal house, because now it's an antique house. So I need a house full of antiques. So that took me a lot longer. So I had to do a lot of work there. And then actually dealing with Airbnbs and cleaners and schedules and all this stuff. So it's a lot more work than I would have chosen to get into. And people always just say, why don't you sell it? And it's because I can't. I feel like I'm stuck with this house forever. I don't see me ever being able to sell this house.
Yeah. So we got a question from Brian, who's a real estate agent. He said, so since you have to disclose the hauntings, do you have to write that in? Would you have to write that into a term of a contract?
No, it should have been disclosed at some point in time, even if they just told us, but it should have been in the disclosure somewhere that it was the house was haunted. Anytime, again, if it's a stigmatized property, so haunted, there was a murder recently, that there's something like that should be disclosed. And again, the reason I know that there's no way they didn't know is because this was happening before, and these were the property managers. I talked to a tenant who lived there for 2 years, and he had the same stuff, maybe worse. He had more negative stuff happening, but that's because he really egged them on, where, I look at them as live people. And if I wouldn't speak to a live person like that, I won't speak to them like that, where he really was push the button. And we see this all the time on a lot of ghost hunting shows, right? Where people like to push the button. And I'm not here for that. And so I treat them with respect. And so I don't have those sort of issues. And that's actually probably my biggest concern with using it as an Airbnb, is that I am concerned that people are going to come in and disrespect Steve. Steve might be dead, but disrespect Steve and watch what happens. I'm not going to be okay with this. I'm protective of the house. I'm protective of my spirits, even though I thought it was super rude last weekend. I was like, oh, we're like family. And he said, no. And I was like, are we friends at least? And he said yes to that. But I was like, dude, I feel like you're my weird, creepy uncle or something like that. But he's like, he makes it very clear that no, we are not related. So.
Okay, well,
that's old time thinking.
What'd you say, Kyle?
So it's more that old time thinking. Yeah,
we get a lot of that.
Family, friends.
Yeah, especially an old Italian dude. They are. He was pretty close to his family. Although I don't like his brother, and I don't think he likes his brother. But his brother sometimes appears. But he was the. So in this town, prostitution and gambling actually happened until the mid-50s.
Nice.
And it was just ignored. And then in 52 or 53, the chief of police was trying to cut down on prostitution and gambling. And so the city council fired him. And so it was in the newspaper. He's like, the reason they fired me is because I wouldn't be a stooge to prostitution and gambling. He went to the AG, who is Pat Brown, the governor, his father, also Pat Brown, Edmund Pat Brown. He went there, and they kind of watched, but his brother ended up becoming the chief of police. So we don't know how much shady stuff. I mean, we do know the bootlegging, we know all this other stuff, but there's a lot we probably don't know that went on. But yeah, his brother was the chief of police. I mean, this is the same brother who took one of his new tenants out fishing and he drowned. So like 5 days after he moved into the house. Yeah. Seems very suspicious to me. So, you know, there's been a whole lot of, there's just, I mean, I know there's so much I don't know and there's so much I can't know. But, you know, it's been interesting learning about all of it for sure. But I'm just like, oh, your brother murdered that guy out in the boat. And they used to, next door, there's a quadplex now that used to be a hotel. And it burned down in 31, and he was managing that, and somebody died in that too. So I'm like, what happened there? Like, did they really burn down this whole hotel to cover up that? Like, so it's like you have no idea what kind of crimes that happen that we don't actually know about, just because, again, his brother was well connected. So, or the whole family was well connected. But yeah, it really was, even during Prohibition. There was advertisements in all the newspapers that said, had the advertised bars during Prohibition, and the sheriff was a proprietor of one of those. In the newspaper, it had the sheriff's name, Pioneer Club, you know, Wet Goods, which meant bar, like proprietor Lucott, and he was the sheriff for 50 years, maybe longer. And so they really just did not care. And so, yeah, his brother was the chief of police when the state came in and did the prostitution and gambling raids and shut it all down. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Steve had done some dirty deeds involving gold and fraud. Is it possible that he's got something stashed on the property and that's why he's sticking around and so protective?
So I thought that originally. I thought, well, it's that, or, you know, he's afraid to move on because of all of his shadiness. But and his daughter, they did ask me. She asked me if I've torn up the basement looking for gold, and I was like, should I do that? Like, I just, at this point in time, it's probably not worth it, because somebody did remodel the house in the 90s. His daughter sold the house in the 90s. And so they did a lot of work. So I feel like if there was gold there, they would have found it then. So I'm not going to destroy anything looking for it at this point in time. It's not worth it.
Okay. So you said that there was, in the basement floor seems like it's raised up.
Mm-hmm.
Like 4 feet. You haven't done any excavation or any like radar or LiDAR to see if there's anything under there?
So I have spoken to, there's only 2 companies in the area that does ground penetrating radar. One was like not interested in my nonsense, because I was like, I just kind of want to know if there's bodies in there. And the other guy is like, we might be able to do it, but he thinks it's too narrow, because with the ground penetrating radar, it has to overlap itself to be able to, it has to be able to make passes. And so it has to be a decently wide space. So he, you know, based on my description, you know, telling him what it looked like and whatnot, he doesn't think that it's actually wide enough to actually be able to do the ground penetrating radar, because you wouldn't be able to go back and do sweeps over it.
Oh, that's too bad. It'd be nice to know what's going on in that subfloor, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's very strange, because it's like you have to take like 4 steps up to it, and then it's like 4 steps down and then 4 steps up. So it's just like, doesn't make sense. Why is this one section making the roof very short? Why is the foundation raised only in this, like, only in part of the unfinished part of the basement, not in the rest of it? It doesn't make sense. So
sounds like there's still a mystery to be discovered there.
To be continued. Always been my secret hope. I'm like, hey, we'll get one of those big shows out with the big budgets. They can do it, you know. But as for me, I don't really want to pour new basement flooring or cement. So I will just wait.
Once you get the gold, you'll be able to afford it.
Right? Maybe. Because, yeah, I mean, In 1930 and in 1925, the first time he was arrested, one of his co-defendants basically said, "Oh, I just dug up like the shed on his property, and that's where I found all this gold." And I mean, this shed on his property would be still my property, right? Like, because he had, again, the house, and then next door was the hotel, which burned down in 31. And I'm pretty sure he wouldn't have left gold out there for, since the 30s. But I kind of just assumed that if there actually was any, that his daughters would have known about it. Like they would have told family. They wouldn't have hid it forever. He did live to be 91, but yeah. But his daughter did ask me if I've torn apart the basement looking for gold. So
she's just biding her time.
I am afraid that she's going to die and she's going to move in with the rest of us. So like, no more. I need to no more. We are close to the family. And that is one of the tricky parts also for me, is having to, Steve has a child that's still alive. He has grandchildren. He has great-grandchildren. Like, he has family still in town. And so I have to be very careful about it. Now, again, I don't have anything that's not public. I mean, I have a lot of public record of, like I said, of all the criminal activity and stuff like that. That's all criminal. That's all public record. But still, it's real. That's one of the hard parts for me, is to try to manage, like, being kind to the family that's left behind, but like also like, come on, your family was shady. Like, see, there's nothing to say about it other than your family was shady. But some people, take that more differently. Like the fact, I don't even know that Steve and his wife were ever married, because they had Linda, who's there, in 33, but he was married to another woman until 1935. And I never found another marriage license for Linda's mom, who he was with until he died. So, but you never know, like, and of course in 2022 lenses, it's like, that's no big deal. But in 1935, that was a big deal. In 1933, that was a big deal. So even though we know what happened all the time, it's still, kind of adds that whole layer of, shadiness to it all. But
yeah, because that's still the time when the daughter got pregnant, she went to go live with the aunt till the baby was born. It was still that time. So yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I can't judge, because my grandpa, my father did not realize that his dad was still married when he was conceived, because of the lies they told and the ways they tried to cover it up and hide and pretend about what year it was and stuff like that. So we know it happened. It happened probably more than we ever knew. But still, so between, going to jail, prison, he went to Kansas, Leavenworth, for 15 months. Actually, the Supreme Court overturned his case after he'd been there for 15 months. So he technically, he got off on the first time, because basically they said, the judge was like, well, there's no proof that it was stolen, which I agree. That I don't think the gold was stolen at all. I think that Steve got it from people who might have been from people who stole it, but he didn't steal it. He was getting it through booze, through gambling, through, boarding these people who were stealing it, but he wasn't stealing it, So I think that was kind of the what got them off, was the technicality about that with the Supreme Court. Now, the second time, when it was $300,000, he only got 6 months in jail. So there wasn't enough time to get in trouble to send it to the Supreme Court to try to fight that one. But yeah, because he only got 6 months that time.
Do they give you errands to run? Do you ever get insight or reach out to so and so and let them know that mom or dad still cares? Or
no, something? Like I try to be like, sometimes like his daughter would say things to me and I'd be like, hey Steve, your daughter says this. No response. So I actually have kind of asked, and it seems like they don't like her. And I don't know if it's because she sold the house and they're mad, or if it's for another reason, but they don't seem to like her. So I have not gotten that. Of course, I haven't asked if like Linda wants us to say something to her daughter, because her daughter's still alive. Her daughter and her son are alive. But no, I've never been Again, I think they're just living their afterlife, just doing their things,
They're
and
just waiting for someone to find all the gold buried in the basement foundations.
so I think it's just that they are attached to the house. They don't want to go because the house sucks you in. It's like fly trap. So I don't think that they're stuck there. I think that they choose to be there because they want to be in this house for whatever reason that is. So, I'd like to think it's that, not something, because I mean, I really like at first was like, hey, Steve, really, having kids outside of wedlock isn't that big of a deal. Making booze is no big deal. Like, hey, let's talk you through this. This is fine. Like, I'm sure you're fine. Just move ahead, move on. But now now I just realized, no, I don't think it has anything to do with any of that. I just think that they are just stuck there because this is the place that they want to be. This is their, and his daughter said to me, like, why can't you just leave him alone? Like, why do you have paranormal investigators coming in there? Why can't you just leave him alone? Why can't you just let him rest in peace? And I'm like, you think hanging out in my basement is resting in peace, Yolanda? Really? Like, if that's heaven, that's going to be a severe disappointment that I did entirely too many nice things in my life. I'm just saying. If hanging out in my basement, is heaven. So,
I lived this good life, and now I'm in a basement.
yeah. I mean, I guess there's worse places to be, but obviously, but no,
Like Wisconsin.
Rest in peace. Yeah. I'm trying to talk my husband into moving to Kansas or Ohio so I could retire, but yeah. A lot more ghosts out there. I'll just do a chain of haunted Airbnbs, but
That's not a bad idea. That's a great idea, actually.
Yeah. I mean, again, I never in a million years would have expected that this is where I was going. It was literally just that I had a house that I bought for a friend to live in when she got out of her marriage, and she had pit bulls, and so she needed a place to stay. So and I had like 2 jobs, extra income. So I bought this house for her to live in, to rent. And then she bought her own house. So I had to decide in COVID with moratoriums on evictions, whether and what I should do with this 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. And so I was like, I'll just sell it and I'll buy a big house and do rent by the room. So that way, as long as half the people are paying the rents, I can pay my mortgage. It'll be great. And so never in a million years expected I would make this turn. And the house I bought before that was in 1893. You would think that one would be haunted, but no, not at all. It's this one. So,
well, you have lots of fascinating tales, and if you ever do get to the bottom of that basement, literally, we'd love to have you come back on and share the mystery that was uncovered.
Yeah, if anybody has a ground penetrating radar that wants to just come hang out in my basement, please let me know. I'm happy to open the doors for you. If you need to practice, they're I looked them up. They're like $20,000 to buy used, or else I might have tried it, to see what else I could find all around the property. It's a very small property, but still we're right along the creek. So Lord knows when that creek dries up, that might be a nice place to do that too.
Right.
I guess when it was a brothel, the men would, if the wives showed up, they would use the creek to escape. So yeah, they would just jump out the windows into the creek so that way they can get away from their wives. And then there's poor Fred who could never get away from his wife.
He's still gonna argue.
Still telling them what to do.
Stop yelling at me.
I find new things all the time, and I actually didn't realize that right in front of the house it says Linda and Fred, it written in the cement from when the cement was done, the 60s or something like that. And I was like, oh, look at that. Never realized that until last weekend. So I'm still finding all sorts of new stuff all the time there. But yeah, there.
Is it all right if we put up some photos from your VRBO?
Of course.
All right.
And of course, if people want to go to Facebook, they can see videos of it. Yeah, I say outside looks really small from the outside, but it's not. So, and that's a similar picture to what I saw that made me fall in love with it. But the library was the reason why I bought the house. I love old books. That's
gorgeous. This is one of the bedrooms.
That's a walkthrough.
Oh, it's a walkthrough. Okay. Sitting room. Yeah, that's very nice. Let's see if we can find that basement. Is the basement shown up here?
No. I would the unfinished part of the basement I usually have locked off, unless it's somebody is trustworthy. So that's the mirror that's haunted.
This one right here?
Yeah. So that's the mirror. If you go to like my other social pages, you can see a picture of those. They're like a whole family in that mirror. It's insane.
We'll have to see if I can find that too. That's a
Yes.
beautiful house. Oh, I like that staircase. Look at that.
Yes.
You got a ton of mirrors. You're just asking for portals.
There's more of them. There's more of them than that now. But these are, no, it's only that other creepy mirror that's a problem. Those ones are actually more modern. They just look older. Because old mirrors are heavy and this house is old, and therefore, why would you need beams every 16 inches? Nobody needs that. So yeah. Anyways, there's no studs. So I couldn't hang the old heavy mirrors because there's no studs on most of the house. So things I've learned. But yeah, there's a picture. That's the mirror. Look at that.
Wow.
The person in the plaid shirt is a human, but there is nobody sitting on that bed. And you can tell too, if you go like back to the pictures from VRBO of that bed, the bed has a rose colored quilt, right? There's not a white blanket on that bed, but that picture very much looks like there's like a white sheet on it. So somebody kept seeing pictures of somebody in the mirror, or people moving in the mirror, so they took the picture. But yeah, it looks like there's like a white sheet there. Because so to me, it looks like there is a woman at the end with the long hair. And then I see two smaller people, and then one in the end. And then to me, it looks like there's somebody laying across them.
Yep.
Wow.
I don't know if you see that. So if it's so here's one of those situations. I bought this bedroom set on Facebook Marketplace. So then I had to reach out to the woman I bought it from and said, hey, there's this picture. By any chance, do you know who these people are? Because I don't know if these are spirits attached to the house or spirits attached to the furniture. I was like, I know this sounds crazy, but here's this picture. There's nobody in this bed. Like, do you know who these people are? And she's like, no, actually the bedroom set, it was like my stepdad's sister's neighbors back in like Wichita Toledo. And so it went from Toledo to like Oregon to here. But the second owner of my house, Maggie, she was Chilean. And she's the one I think that ran a brothel. She had a son who died. She had two daughters. And so to me, this also looks like it could possibly be a family portrait of theirs, because the woman has really long dark hair, as a Chilean would, and it kind of looks like there's two girls in the middle. And then there's a larger one at the end there. And then they had a son that died at 2 years, 7 months. So I'm like, that could be the one laying across them. I don't know who this is, but I mean, it's super creepy. Whatever it is. That was one of those things, like sometimes learning more makes me feel a lot better, but sometimes learning more makes me feel a lot worse. You will never catch me sleeping in that bedroom. I'm just saying, and it's funny because when people stay there, like even if they don't know, they always stay in the same two bedrooms, and it's the teal colored bedroom and then the master bedroom, black bedroom. Everybody stays in those same two rooms. Nobody stays in that pink room or the other one with the creepy girl in the closet. And I don't tell people that. It's just the energy of the houses,
Yeah.
That's not they choose to sleep. And so my mom is like it's no big deal. So we're going up there today, as a matter of fact, in a little bit. And I'm going to make her sleep in the pink bedroom tonight. So that's the bed I'm going to make her sleep on tonight. So
that's great. Elsie, thank you so much for spending the time with us today.
He is as crazy as we're digging him out for like 3 weeks.
You're kind of cutting out. We didn't get that last bit.
Go ahead. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well,
Oh, it's fine. Yeah, we're having some connectivity issues.
We're super happy that you came on the show. We're excited to hear more as things develop. Hopefully you do get a hold of the ground penetrating radar so we can find out what's in that basement. For anybody who's interested in booking with Elsie, check her out on Bethany's Home Sweet Haunted Home. I posted the link to your Instagram. There's a link on the Instagram to the VRBO so you can book. And until next time, keep on exploring the edges of the unknown.